to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on the issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Hello, this is Abe Thompson. Welcome to New Cyber Frontier, the eminent podcast. I'm sitting in for our regular host, Chris Gorog. I'm broadcasting from the lovely SecureSet Academy campus here in Colorado Springs, where I'm the director. I have the privilege of helping Chris out with the podcast here. And I'm also delighted to speak to a lady from my daughter's birthplace, way over in jolly old England. It's my pleasure to introduce Helen C. Helen C. is a lawyer with Clark Wilmot, a firm that is specialized and focused on cybersecurity law and practice there in the UK and in Europe. And in particular, Helen is drafting and authoring a book that's ready to be released here soon. It's entitled Cybersecurity Law and Guidance. Hello, Helen. How are you?
Hello. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure. It's always great to hear the accent again and remind me of the good old days. So can you tell us how you got here to this point with, of course, your law background, but also to the need and desire to put together a book as solicited by Bloomsbury?
Yes, well, I'm a corporate lawyer with Clark Wilmot, and as we have seen in the practice, cybersecurity and data protection is absolutely fundamental for our clients, whether they are being attacked or whether they need to defend or they need to deal with perpetrators. So as a lawyer, it's absolutely central to our business, whether we're involved in the litigation, whether we're involved in protecting the IP and the trademarks, or whether it's to do with me when I'm buying and selling companies. I'm in the healthcare space, so I buy and sell a lot of dental practices, GP surgeries, which are doctors, residential care homes, and even in that space, there's a lot of digitization going on with medical devices. So everything that we're touching in terms of the industries is impacted by the risk of a cyber security attack. And only a few months ago, the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK, was badly attacked by WannaCry. It really just brought down the entire system of the health service. Operations had to be stopped. And it's real, it's on our doorstep, and it's something that I'm very, very keen to learn more about through experts, and also to help my clients. And Bloomsbury is a publisher that I've worked with before. This is my 6th book, and they said to me, could you put together this very important book, because actually very little has been written on cybersecurity in the format that we're doing.
Sure.
So this book, Cybersecurity Law and Guidance, looks at the civil law, which is the litigation aspect, people that have done things wrong and we need to sue them. There's also the criminal aspect, and obviously there are various legislations out there, and if you breach it, that's a criminal offence.
Right.
There's also the IT, the more geeky element, as I call it, which is very, very interesting because it gives you the kind of technical and market research as to what people are doing to protect and defend. Accompanied with that, we're also looking at the industry sectors. So we've looked at things like manufacturing, we've looked at nuclear, we've looked at the energy space, we've looked at a whole raft of industries, including healthcare, where there are potential threats, and we give best practice for how you can protect your business, your company, your staff from this battlefield, which is it's live and it's right on our doorstep, and it's becoming more and more entwined in our lives.
Certainly, and it's interesting. We all know full well the impact of WannaCry even here, and we were all quite well versed and astonished actually at the meltdown with the NHS. And for our listeners who aren't familiar, that's not just a healthcare problem in the UK. That's also a government problem because, of course, England has the nationalised or social health service, so it's a government provided service, and so therefore two segments were egregiously attacked there with the government and healthcare. So, Helen, forgive my ignorance. What is your equivalent to here in the United States? Our HIPAA, our Health Information Protect Act, and all of those surrounding protections, specifically about private medical information. What is your equivalent?
Yeah, well, our equivalent would probably be the Data Protection Act.
Okay, so the general.
And also the new GDPR, which is a European regulation that will be enforceable in the UK because that is prior to Brexit taking place.
Right.
And between those laws and the civil laws and the criminal laws, it looks to protect people, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in manufacturing, whether it be nuclear. Obviously, data is so prevalent nowadays, and it's so viral. Everything is becoming digitized, and it's the way of the world. Things are getting faster and faster in terms of technology, and with that comes greater and greater risk.
Right, and it's interesting too as we look at sort of the American sort of free spirit and the desire to protect my own information and whatnot. You look at the GDPR and it's actually far greater emphasis on protection of personal data than we'd even see here in the States. And so Europe tends to be leading the way a bit there, in my view. Would you agree?
Well, I'd love to agree with that. Obviously, we have been impacted significantly on a national level, as well as, at a business kind of B2B level.
Sure.
To put a complete halt to our national health service certainly made everybody sit sort of think, oh my goodness, the threat is real and it's alive and it's affecting people.
Definitely, there must have been a vacuum.
Put it at the forefront of everybody's mind. It's not just somebody else's problem.
Here.
Everybody play a part in it. And what the really interesting thing is that I found out when I was doing research for the book and asking contributors to put in their kind of expert opinions was that actually the threat is on various levels. It's not just digital, there's also physical threats.
Absolutely.
If you left your computer unlocked and somebody saw all the data in your computer, that's a threat.
Yes.
If you actually gave the keys to your door to somebody who shouldn't see it.
Indeed.
If you have CCTV across your offices, that can be tapped into by a perpetrator, and all the coming and going of staff members and even the security guard at the end of the night can be seen by somebody.
Right.
If you are tapping in your credit card details, somebody could actually scan your computer and track your PIN number.
And look right over your shoulder.
Elements of cybersecurity, not just big business. It affects the normal parts, it affects universities, it affects all sectors.
Indeed. Let's take a quick break and go hear from our sponsors, and then we'll get back with Helen C.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
And we're back with the new Cyber Frontier podcast here with Helen C. She's an attorney, a lawyer in the United Kingdom. She's a corporate lawyer and has worked primarily in the healthcare space, but she's become quite the expert in the area of law and guidance as it relates to the cybersecurity industry, so much so that she was solicited to write a book on just that. And Helen, I'm listening to you very, very sort of confidently describe, one of the main domains of cybersecurity, which is the physical domain. So a lot of people may not even think about that, but you're absolutely right. If they can get into your space or pick up your phone where you left it, they've achieved a very great cybersecurity impact on you. So looking back a little bit, sort of in your history, how did you get to this point as a solicitor or as an attorney, a lawyer? How did you get to this point of being regarded as the sort of the expert voice or the voice to be heard in cybersecurity?
Well, I guess I've got to give credit to Bloomsbury because they actually published my earlier book, which was called Doing Business After Brexit. So, as you may know, the UK has voted to leave the EU.
I know full well, yes.
Next year. And obviously a lot of my clients were very concerned with that. And everybody kept asking me, what's going to happen to my deals? What's going to happen to my people? How about my property? Should I invest? Should I not invest? To be honest with you, I hadn't got the answers. I did not know what was going to happen after Brexit.
Sure.
Then I thought, you know what, I'm going to look at the publications and see if anybody written about what might happen in Brexit and how can I protect my clients' rights, how can I protect their position. And it was Bloomsbury that said to me, look, nobody's written about Brexit, could you have a go at writing it? At first I thought, wow, brilliant, I'll have a go. Only very quickly to realise I know nothing about Brexit. And what I had to do there was to liaise with the Department of Exit Europe and also to Theresa May, who's our Prime Minister in the UK, and ask them, how would you envisage the UK to exit the EU? And they indicated it might be a hard Brexit, so that's on the basis of that, we have based the book on a hard Brexit, which means that currently in the UK, we have a frictionless system in the European Union where you have free movement of people and goods and there's no tariffs and customs.
Right.
If it's a hard Brexit, that is no longer frictionless. There will be tariffs, there will be borders, there will be additional costs, and people cannot flow freely from country to country.
Right.
Now, given that we've never written about Brexit before, because Brexit never happened in our entire history, folks were pretty surprised when I managed to put 300 pages of what's going to happen in every single legal sector possible.
Right.
Now, of course, that wouldn't be possible without all my contributors who are excellent at delivering their chapters, because I am really a corporate lawyer. I specialise in buying and selling companies,
Right.
But I don't specialise, for example, in construction or property. So I called on all the key lawyers who are the best in their field in that particular sector,
Yeah.
and asked them to put in their thoughts on a hard Brexit and look in that sector.
And that's
With the same kind of mindset, Bloomsbury have asked me to put together the cybersecurity law and guidance handbook. It's going to be the definitive guide. Nothing has been written about it at all in the format that we're doing. It's going to be a pretty substantial book, about 700 pages. It's going to be the go-to book for anybody who needs help with cybersecurity, whether you're a professional, whether you're a student, whether you're a business owner, whether you're in the space or not in the space. This book has become international. It's not just a UK book. It's looking at cybersecurity across the world, because really we are, a world that transacts and does business internationally.
well, and
Very practical book. And it's going to be, I can't wait to see it launched, because it's really a talking point for many companies.
definitely, and we'll get to say that we knew you win, and had the privilege of, because I don't think we'll ever be able to. Yeah, we'll never be able to get you on the podcast again once it hits the presses. That'll be quite a grand success, I'm sure, for you.
Always talk to you, because I'm really grateful for the time that you give.
Oh, indeed. So, as as you've kind of entered into this sort of dialogue in this book, and as you've looked now toward the future, particularly with Brexit and the impact it's going to have on business, what do you see as the major issue that needs solving?
Okay, well, if we look at the physical space, I think educationally, input as to how to keep their computers locked, how to protect their space basically as if it was your front door. I think there's a massive piece there that has to be addressed from, bottom upwards for all businesses. Because currently it's a very slack environment.
Sure.
People don't realise, if someone tails you into your flat or apartment or condo, you are physically opening your front door to somebody who you don't want. In the same ilk, if you have a computer, a laptop, if you're working in Starbucks and you're using somebody's Wi-Fi, you're basically saying, look at my stuff, check out my credit cards, here's my bank details,
Yeah.
here's my medical record,
Come on in.
here's
Yes.
my diary as well, if you're a meeting. So people don't realise that, actually just getting a free Wi-Fi pass from, a restaurant or a particular public space is actually pretty high on the, threat as to how easy it is for a cyber criminal to tap into your space. It has been shown as well that even in, that particular scenario, someone can pretend to be the free Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get to your computer. They can easily get a scanning device that makes them the Wi-Fi, created a which sounds all, it's very similar to the shop that you're sitting in, and tap into your computer.
Yeah.
The other thing that needs to be looked at is actually understanding multi-cybersecurity, okay, and how to prevent against it. So I've in this particular book, Best Practices, how people should be operating. Should certain data be shown to all and sundry in your firm, or should it just be to a small group? How to minimise the risk of leakage of secure information. For example, we've got a number of really leading key banks who have contributed to the book, and they've given such a detailed analysis of how they try to mitigate against cyber threats. We've also looked at what happens if the employee breaches their employment contract. Who then is at risk? Is it the company who's employed the employee? Or can we say the employee who actually breached their employment contract that takes the royalty hit?
Sure.
There's so many different facets to this. How do we, in a case where liability has been has occurred, how do we show negligence? How do we trace the negligence? It's quite, fluid when it comes to data. What happens if I didn't BCC my 200 contacts on an email address, but sent it CC to everybody, and everybody got everybody's email address? Sometimes there's human error, but other times there's deliberate manipulation of the system. So it's trying to keep it close-knit to the core of the business as possible, and I guess only disclose what needs to be disclosed.
Sure. And it's, some of these things that you talk about, these principles are so seemingly obvious and fundamental, but it sounds like there's still quite a lackadaisical approach to information assurance practices that would button up a lot of this. Now, are there any sectors in, say, in the UK society that you see are doing this well? Like, for instance, I'd hope that your friends at MOD, the Ministry of Defense, are they better from what you can garner at some of these basic information assurance practices, or is it equally a problem for those folks?
The MOD is certainly way up there in terms of how to defend the systems of the UK. We have dedicated organisations that have been set up by the government just to tackle cybersecurity,
Right.
And they protect, not just the airspace, but nuclear and very, very high sensitive industries.
Sure.
So yes, but I think that's a totally different area, and that hopefully, fingers crossed, will stay protected.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully their good practices can rub off on the rest of society too. Maybe some sort of interaction, private versus government, and lessons learned. But we'll continue this conversation in just a moment after we hear from our sponsor.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Over 3 million data breaches happen every single day. That's over 2,000 records being compromised every minute. So often, we focus on securing web data access. But what if the attackers are already inside, having gained direct access to your storage through data management software? When it comes to communications that go directly into your storage devices, make SNIA your first line of protection. SNIA's conformance testing limits outdated communications that are known to be used by attackers. It works continuously behind the background to make sure your storage is protected. To find out if your data is truly secure, visit our website at www.snia.org/cybertest.
And we're back with New Cyber Frontiers podcast. This is Abe Thompson, your host here at Secure Set Academy campus here in Colorado Springs, where I serve as the director for our cybersecurity boot camps. I'm privileged to have the honor of speaking with Helen C, who is a lawyer in the United Kingdom. She's been solicited to write a book. She's nearly done. I can hear the relief in her voice almost. The title of the book is Cybersecurity Law and Practice. So, Helen, we've kind of been talking about your view of the major issue and things that need to be addressed as we look at, for you, a pretty profound change with Brexit coming, and sort of and also just continued implementation of the GDPR, or the data protection responsibilities that you have in Europe. So what specific steps, if you had your shingle hanging out there and people were coming to you for advice, what specific steps would you say are next? What do people need to do to prepare to get ready to do this right?
Okay, well, the UK have set up a national cybersecurity strategy to make Britain confident, capable and resilient, especially in the fast-moving digital world. And actually that's being replicated in all countries, and the language and the lessons to be learned are the same wherever you are in the world.
Sure.
The main thing is defending the systems, the infrastructure, to deter any cyber threats, thieves, as they call them, of the digital world.
Right.
And to develop what I call a top-down MOT of your business. So it affects biggest companies to the individual citizen. It's looking at things like, number one, basic cyber hygiene. If you take a computer or a laptop out of your workplace and you tuck away on a tray, are you at risk of leaking your company's secret? If you go on a company computer and go onto a Hotmail account, which is not protected by the security aspects of the computer, are you also letting the company be put at risk?
Sure.
There's also more sophisticated deterrence aspects that specialist cybersecurity companies can help with. So there's the whole spectrum, but I think each person has to do their own bit and realise that actually the threat can be against anybody. And it's not even personal, it's just whatever opportunity the cyber threat can get into, they will attack. So sometimes we just go, oh, it's not for me, it's the IT department that deals with it. Actually, that's not true. The whole workforce needs to be alert and aware of how they can protect not just the company, but their own work, space, their own personal detail. So cyber skills education is absolutely key.
Sure.
Which is why I think this book is going to be crucial to many, many people, because it gives you a learning platform, it gives you an MOT as to how to protect your business, it gives you many checklists, and most usefully, I've given all the sample legal documents that you could actually use and apply to your business.
Well, and that awareness top down is key. So even the folks in the C-suite, as we would call it, the CEOs and the CFOs, those decision makers need to have awareness just as much as that front end user, for sure. It sounds like go ahead.
And what we've seen when we've interviewed and asked contributors to contribute from places like the nuclear, from energy, from the healthcare, from manufacturing to retail, entertainment, all the lessons, irrespective
Yes.
And there has to be some sort of policy in place for what to do, who to assist, recognizing that the cyberspace is innovating faster than us as humans. And to get our best people into cybersecurity, because it's going to be a threat, it will and can reduce an entire country to a static standstill. And that's why the strategy of cybersecurity is absolutely key for every single person. I've got a niece who's 11 and she's learning how to code. A, very rare for girls to code, but B, for a little girl like her to learn coding, I said get them learning so that they're not afraid of the computer system. They don't just rely on the IT guy. And therefore, this is the only way the threat can be eliminated by teamwork, which is why in this particular book, I don't profess to be an expert outside of security at all. I'm leaning on the experts.
Right.
I know a little bit, but I know my limitations too. I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm not, a tech person doing code, but I know who to call upon. And in the book, in each chapter, I call on the best experts to give me their help, to help the reader to know what to do in a situation like X.
Well, that's the best approach too, and what what you're talking about as part of the solution is awareness, and I think you, Helen, are going to be a key part of that. I had an earlier guest that was telling me she's got a heart for K through 12 in the United States in terms of impacting them in cybersecurity, and she came yesterday from sitting down with a bunch of kindergartners who were programming robots in a kindergarten classroom, 5 and 6 year old children, and the capability is there. So her insistence, and I would sure imagine what your niece is doing is a recognition of the need to start early if we want these folks to be thinking and breathing and living cybersecurity by the time they enter the workforce.
Definitely.
I
really one of the biggest areas that we learned is that it's not always malware that causes the problem. It could be warmware. And that's what I mean by that, is that somebody inside the group, somebody inside the company has actually pressed something which they shouldn't have pressed, looked at the website that they shouldn't have looked at, clicked on the link that they shouldn't have clicked on, and didn't screen the incoming attachment before it was opened. So, that is the easiest way for a virus to infect our computers. It's having that lack of knowledge. And usually, what our firm would say is that if you're not sure of something, send it to the specialist, get them to verify, to decontaminate it, to get it to quarantine. Once they've given the okay, then you can open it.
Right.
But, it is really true. Prevention is better than cure.
Well, here in America, information technology professionals often joke about what's called the 8th layer of the network, and that's the human, him or herself. And usually it is, in fact, our weakest link is sort of that insider threat. And so we're hearing this. We have a very diverse audience, of course. If you were going to call us to action, in terms of how we would make ready, kind of follow your charge in cybersecurity, what might that call to action be?
I think number one is prepare your people for what we call World War III. It's live, it's here. The lack of education is really one of the biggest areas of threat to any company. So that's called corruption. Get yourself educated. We've got a fantastic book that everybody has contributed to, that's anybody. And get yourself a copy, read it, learn, and apply.
Indeed. And I'd imagine that near term there'll be plenty of university students that'll be saying your name under their breath as they buy your book as one of their required textbooks for the for their ongoing curriculum. But that's also quite will be quite a testimony to the great work you've done, I'm sure. Helen, it has been a delight to speak with you here on New Cyber Frontier, especially to talk with someone across the pond, as we often say. And I'm delighted for you. Congratulations in advance on the publication of this, your 6th book. And any last words?
Well, if you need to get hold of me, feel free to drop me an email, HelenTheLawyer@gmail.com. Always happy to help anybody who needs help.
That's fantastic. We appreciate it, Helen. TheLawyer@gmail.com. This has been New Cyber Frontiers podcast with our guest, Helen C., author of the up-and-coming Cybersecurity Law and Guidance, coming out of the UK. Helen, thank you very much. And for our listeners out there, thanks for all you do, and thanks for listening. Good day.
The views or opinions expressed during this podcast are not those of Colorado Technical University.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.